We need a lot of electricians. A lot of people. Close that.
Who's not? Here, we all muted. Everybody's they're muted. I keep hearing some feedback. Okay, welcome to the regularly scheduled Smithville R2 Board of Education meeting for March. At this time, if you would, we'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ian Saxton, if you would, please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ian. Item 7.1, adoption modification of the agenda. Does anybody have any issues or changes, recommended changes for the agenda? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Got a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. We'll move on to 7.2. Approve the executive session meeting minutes for the February 17th, 2021 meeting. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the meeting minutes from 2021, or excuse me, February 17th executive session? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion and a second to approve the executive session meeting minutes for February 17th, 2021.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to approve the executive session meeting minutes for February 17th. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. 7.3, approve the regular session meeting minutes for February 17th, 2021. Does anybody have any questions or corrections that need to be made to those? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion and a second to approve the regular session meeting minutes for February 17th, 2021.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to approve the regular session meeting minutes for February 17th, 2021. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. 7.4, approve the board self-evaluation workshop minutes for February 23rd, 2021. Any comments or questions regarding those meeting minutes? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion and a second to approve the board self-evaluation workshop minutes for February 23rd, 2021.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to approve the board self-evaluation workshop minutes for February 23rd. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. 7.5, approve the executive session meeting minutes for February 23rd, 2021. Any comments or questions regarding those minutes? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion and a second to approve the executive session meeting minutes for February 23rd, 2021.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to approve the executive session meeting minutes for February 23rd, 2021. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. 8.0, approval of consent agenda items. 8.1, approved bills for payment. 8.2, March supplemental pay. 8.3, legal services contract extension. And 8.4, 2021-2022 OPA contract. Any comments or questions regarding the consent agenda items?
Is that?
This year, and so we have a for your pricing tool is one side based on the slight increase of the real contract, and so that's how we determine how much we charge for our non-contract. So next month, I'm going to have a suggestion for lunch and breakfast prices for the following school year after we approve this contract year. This contract year is the same price as the original contract. They just slightly bump it each year for a cost increase around 2%. So I just put it on the board every year just so that you see what that's like.
So do we subsidize the other, right now, it's what, 2.5 for lunch? Do we subsidize the other dollar, or is it subsidized somewhere else?
We do get money for federal for our lunch program, and so we do get money back for that.
Okay.
So it's not a subsidization on our part, but more it's not money we get from the federal.
Okay. We're not charging the kids the full $3.55 for lunch, right?
Any other comments or questions about the consent agenda items? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items 8.1 through 8.4. Any further discussion? Please vote. I did get a text that they cannot hear the speakers. So
So, for example, like teachers are having both places unmuted and spoke, where originally when unmuted now. So, in third teacher exchange, we'll be able to.
Okay.
So, yeah, we respond to a question or have a question.
Looks like every time I go to comment, if you go back to your Zoom screen and just hit the space bar, it will let you chime in. And then
Okay, 9.1, board priorities update.
Yeah, just a couple of things here. Reminder to the board that the governor did withhold funds, as you know, coming into this fiscal year and exiting the last fiscal year. And he's released 123 million of those dollars back to school districts. So that is good news. We expected that because the economy in Missouri's behaved so positively throughout the pandemic, and so that's good news. And I'm sure the stimulus dollars had something to do with that behavior. So as you know, the federal government just approved $1.9 trillion in supplemental dollars. So obviously K-12 is slated to get some of those dollars too. We don't know how much that will mean for the Smithville School District. It'll be a little while, or whether that will impact FY21 that we're in now, whether it will impact FY22. We don't know those things yet, but it's supposed to be significantly larger than what we have received in the previous funds. So a couple of things on budget there. Also, Mrs. Ambrosen, in a recent memo to the board, described the progress on the early childhood program. She shared some paperwork with me today. This is taking shape. Again, these are the 2 classrooms at the end of the new wing at Eagle Heights Elementary, giving us the opportunity to expand our early childhood programs. These would be paid programs. So parents would pay for those seats. It would be, the goal would be just to simply break even with that program. Really, it's the only way that we can provide additional services because we don't get ADA for those students, so we don't get paid for those students. So that's exciting. She's worked really hard and her staff's worked really hard on making that progress, so we appreciate that as well. That's all I have for board priorities, unless you have questions for me.
Okay, moving on. 9.2, Assistant Superintendent for Academic Services. Dr. Crabtree.
I have a few items that are specified in your agenda, but I have several under other. So I'll go through just a brief description of the news that I have to share. And if you have any questions at any time or would like additional information, please stop me. First, we have been awarded the Kaufman Grant to fund a K-12 real-world learning and community partnership facilitator. Very, very exciting that we can start making some progress on our CSIP that are aligned to that particular position. And the job description is posted in new business for you all to approve this evening. So excited to get that approved and get that job posted and start moving there. I wanted to share that for the last 2 years, Cheryl Nichols, who is the business teacher up at Smithville High School, has been awarded the Amazon Future Engineer Program Grant, which provides curriculum for our computer programming class and also has provided her with training. And that grant has been renewed for next school year. So that is exciting. As many of you know, we have 5 teachers who are participating in the Aspiring Principals Academy. Prior to your April board meeting, they will be presenting projects that they've been working on. So each teacher, or there's one teacher team, they happen to be in the same building, so they're sharing a project, but they've identified an area of growth, and then they have a proposed solution to share with you. So we will have a reception. Right now we're scheduling that at 5 p.m. I think at least one of our teachers has a game. He's a coach and has a game that night. So he will provide his presentation virtually for you to watch at your convenience. So that time may change a little bit. But 5 p.m. in the boardroom is the anticipated time at this point. This Friday, we will kick off our Warriors Explorer K-8 summer program. Any student who will be in grades K through 8 next school year will be able to enroll in the program. Last summer, because of COVID, we restricted registration. There will be no restrictions this year. So business as usual for our summer school program. Communication to parents along with registration links will launch on Friday as well. All of the buildings are working on their state assessment schedules that will begin in the last week of April and conclude in May. Although assessment data will not be included in our APR calculations for the next school year, we are required to test all students who are enrolled in the district. So we are working on a plan for bringing our virtual students in for assessments as well, because there are no virtual options for the state test. Kindergarten screening will begin March 22nd. We currently have 116 screenings scheduled. There are 41 at Maple, 37 at Horizon, and 38 at Eagle Heights. Graduation is scheduled for March 22nd at Cable Dahmer Arena in Independence. We were advised yesterday that we are approved for 8 guests per graduate, and Dr. Platt will get that information out via newsletter this week. The last thing I have for you is for the second year, the Excellence in Education Banquet, which honors teachers, support staff, businesses, and volunteers who go above and beyond to support our students and schools, will be a virtual awards program. We have decided to actually host a banquet in the high school cafeteria, where we will invite our honorees and a guest to come for dinner, and we will watch the awards program all together. The board is also invited to attend. We would ask that you not bring a guest though, so that we can keep our numbers controlled. It is April 27th. And the award ceremony begins at 6 p.m. we're planning on a plated dinner, so, you know, come a little bit before 6 and we'll be served at our tables. And I will be getting invitations out to our honorees this week. That's all I have unless you have questions for me.
Any questions for Dr. Cradfield?
All right, graduation.
May 22nd, 7 p.m. at Cable Dahmer.
Thank you, Dr. Cradfield.
Thank you.
I'm going to take just a second and do a slight insert here, but just got notified that the Lady Warriors basketball team traveled to Kirksville tonight and won 57-51. So they will now be playing, I believe, in the state quarterfinal game on Saturday. Location to be determined. Possibility, just wait and see, but possibility we could even host the state quarterfinal game on Saturday. So congratulations to Coach Bosby and the Lady Warriors. Okay, moving on. Construction update, Mr. Hedgecorth.
Great, I get to follow that up. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And I'm gonna start with my typical slideshow. All right, so our March construction update, again, our projects that we have for this phase. Our Gantt chart timeline for construction for Eagle Heights. Eagle Heights is going really well. Going to show you some new pictures. It's amazing how quickly CMU block and steel goes up when you have some nice weather. You can see that we have completed all of our wall and structural steel work. We are doing the roofing right now. We're actually working on the flat part of the roof. You'll see here in a second the pictures. The pitch part of the roof is where we have our collaboration spaces out at Eagle Heights. And we hope to have this building enclosed by the first week of April. So then that way the trades on the inside of the building can start putting up framing, drywall, and items like that. And you can see when we are hoping to slate the rest of the electrical and plumbing and the building completion. That completion date, I think will be more like late June. I'm going to keep late July on here just because of weather days and stuff like that. But if I truly had to put my guess on it, I really believe that's going to move to late June, but I'm going to keep late July on this documentation. There is some photos of Eagle Heights going up. This is courtesy of Scott Riley, our communications specialist. He was able to take these photos, which does a great job of portraying the structural steel and how this has all been erected. There is a view. This is from the north end looking back south on the Eagle Heights edition. And you can see these areas that are the highest in elevation is where our collaboration spaces are. That brings in a lot of sunlight and areas that our kids really love to learn in. Here is more the northwest area looking back at Eagle Heights. And then this is a true bird's eye view to see that classroom addition extension on that north end extend out. And so it is a very tight campus. We use about every space we have in that area. And so that is our progress at Eagle Heights. So it's looking great. Our activity center, again, this is the inside mock-ups or portrayal of what we have so far. I wanted to show where our timeline is. Our bid day is going to be April 1st, 2021. So we will have all of the bid day results for you at our next April meeting. So you'll be able to see that. In the board packet, there is a PDF document that I'm going to reference here shortly that actually shows you the J. Dunn estimates for that bid day. Those are just estimates based on the 95% complete construction documents. So they could be higher, they could be lower. Right now in the environment, we're looking at big swing prices, meaning crude oil is going up a lot. We're seeing interest rates really jump. The 10-year note jumped to 1.6, just it seemed like overnight in the last couple of weeks. And so some of those fluctuations is seen like steel production, those prices are swinging a lot in some of the bids. And so hopefully some of that settles down by the time our bid day comes around, but we wanted to get our bid day out there as quick as we could to make sure that you know some of this doesn't continue and we don't see more unsettling prices. So that bid day is going to be April 1st. And so I did want to go over our timeline real quick. This has always been summer of 2021. Well, we are going to actually look to move the Horizon HVAC project to the summer of 2022, and here's why. Our biggest project for the activity center is coming up April 1st for bid day. We still don't know what those numbers are going to be. For us to have something planned for Horizon to have HVAC units installed, we would have had to have our decision made basically this week of what we wanted, how much we were going to spend, what that looked like. So without knowing what the bid day was going to come in for activity center, to design the project correctly for Horizon, we were really handicapped because we really don't know what the activity center is going to cost. So if we push the HVAC project back to summer of 2022, then we're able to better know what we will be spending on the activity center, how those price fluctuations will come out, and what that looks like. Being that the activity center is a $9 million project, if prices swing 10% one way or the other, that's $900,000 one way or the other that we could put in this HVAC project Horizon and do the whole school at once, instead of just doing a partial like it was planned and then having to come back again a second time. So we feel like that would be the best way to maximize strategically our dollars and maximize the project itself that we're doing at Horizon to make sure we have the best results. So that's what we're going to look to do for that. So I wanted to reference the PDF document that is in your packet. And that PDF document does have the J. Dunn estimates for all the different trades going into our bid day. And so I just wanted you to see what their estimates were and what the total cost of the project looked like going into that bid day. So fingers crossed, knock on wood, we have a great bid day and we're below this value. For the Eagle Heights Classroom Edition, we were below their bid day estimates. And so I think we were below about 200,000 on a $3 million project. So about 7%. So hopefully we can be below 7% here. Again, the environment's changed a little bit in the last 3 or 4 months compared to when we bid Eagle Heights. But we will, hopefully have a good bid day on April 1st. And you guys will see those numbers in the April board meeting when I present those to you for approval. So that's my construction update, and be happy to answer any questions.
Historically, have we always come in under estimated value from J. Dunn?
I do know the last project we did when we built Eagle Heights Elementary and redesigned Maple that we did typically come under. In past projects, I would have to reference Mr. Kruger. Okay.
We always have dollars available to save these projects, dollars that we didn't need in contingencies and things of that nature. So researching the football field is an example of that.
So, and we're moving back deferred maintenance on the HVAC system until we have a better understanding of the dollar impact from our capital project on the stadium.
I can basically go to the engineering team and say, this is the amount of money we have to spend on Horizon. So we might have enough money to do the whole thing. Instead of before, it was just, we were going to make improvements there. We weren't going to be able to do the whole building. So this may very well allow us to just do the whole building at once and design the system to its best use and capacity.
So what were we enhancing or updating one air handler or two, or what was the scope?
When we were looking at the areas that were the worst, where we had the biggest fluctuation in temperature change from winter to summer and the worst complaint areas. And now we, hopefully with a good bid day, we'd be able to do the whole building. But for us to have it done in 2021, I would need to know how much dollars we have allocated to be able to spend there. Well, with prices fluctuating so much on steel and interest rates and stuff right now, the bid environment, from what Jay Dennis told me, is very unpredictable right now. And so for us to assume where we're going to be on bid day with this would have probably been irresponsible. And so to design Horizon thinking what will be there or not be there would have been pretty risky. And so the safe bet is to let bid day come through for the activity center, see where we're at for Horizon. That way we can build that system for what the dollars that they're there, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
You remember that's the system that's value engineered, like the middle school. We've got one unit, one thermostat, cover several rooms.
Mhm.
Is there any possibility of that being a winter project, or is the timeline not conducive to 3 weeks?
We could definitely look at that possibility. It would possibly save us some money as far as labor goes, because they have so many projects that are done in the summer. If you want to do a winter project, they will typically bid it lower. You start getting into weather. Let's say, the installation doesn't go the way it is, and we have a cold snap like we did this year, and you don't have the units in place. There's definitely some things that could go wrong with that. And so it's definitely something we can look at. There's just some more risk with that, so.
Any other questions or comments about the construction update? Thank you, Mr. Hedgecorth. 9.4, comments from the audience. Checking to see if anyone is out in the hallway. No visitors tonight. Okay, thank you. I will not read that paragraph. Unless Russell's watching and he wants me just to read it just for him. 10.0, program evaluation, parents as teachers, 10.1.
Yes, we have.
Yes, I'm Mary Kay Grusemeyer, and I'm the coordinator of the Parents as Teachers program, as well as one of 4 parent educators. I'm assuming you guys can hear me. Thumbs up. Volume's working. First, I would like to thank the school board and administrators for your support of the Parents as Teachers program. Also, I would like to compliment my staff for quickly adapting to a new way of conducting visits with families last March when we had to go virtual. And for finding creative ways to engage babies and small children and their parents in a virtual space. Many of our families were hesitant to try a virtual visit for fear their children would not engage with us remotely, but they were pleasantly surprised by how well we were able to capture and keep their attention. This year, we again had to adapt our visits and offered 3 different types of visits with the idea of keeping our staff safe as well as our families. Currently, we are offering outdoor visits in our office, and virtual visits. Our outdoor visits kind of turned out to be a great thing because it served as a promotional activity, because people saw us out in driveways in front of houses and wondered what in the world we were doing. And so we got some new families that way. I have included data from this year and past year, and the past year, it's kind of skewed with all of the no kindergarten screening, difference in daycare screening. So the numbers are kind of much lower than we would like them to be, but we are definitely out there doing the best that we can be. So at this time, I guess I would just answer any questions that you might have for me.
All right, Mary Kay, we're going to do this and try to reduce feedback noise. My question is kind of what's the deviation in kiddos seen from last year to this year with COVID, and what are some of the challenges look like that you guys have worked through with that?
Probably families not wanting to wear masks have been one of the things that they've kind of dropped out and said, we don't want to be seen this year. We're not into the virtual, so we don't want to be seen this year, but keep us on your mailing list. So we are still doing that. I believe it's about 15 to 18 families that have opted to not participate this year for one of those reasons. But we continue to get new families every week. We've been getting about 2 new families here at the end of the year. So I'm not really sure where that's coming from, which is a great thing. And they are pretty willing to come to our space. Weather is kind of an issue where, like that cold snap, we probably would have done visits, but for families to pack up their babies and kids and come out when it's freezing weather, they're not quite so willing to do that. So a lot of those visits have been canceled. Quarantine families. So we've had a lot of cancellations this year just from families, but we try and get those rescheduled and complete them as best that we can.
Okay, thank you. I know my children absolutely love Miss Shelley and everything that she does. And we've done a couple remote sessions, and how you engage a 2-year-old for that amount of time blows my mind. But we just really appreciate everything you guys do.
How many families do you have involved right now?
Let me look here. I believe it is. Sorry. It changes daily. I think it's, I think the number that you had was 137, but I think we're actually more like about 143 or 145 right now. The number that is represented there are families who actually have a visit, who have had a visit. So some families that are new families that their visits aren't scheduled until later this month. They don't show up in that number. So it's probably closer to 145, I would guess.
I'm impressed. Thank you.
Is there anything the board can do to help with you in the program?
Our big thing is we would love to keep our awesome space that we have. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do the play groups this year. We've stripped down our room and it's pretty much a sterile environment. But we're looking forward to getting those kids back in and playing together again next year. Continuing to serve all families. Some school districts don't offer it for all families. You have to qualify in some way. And I think it's great for all of our families to be able to participate. Kind of removes the stigma if you have to qualify for some reason. I think it makes people less willing to do it because, oh, you participate in parents as teachers, that must mean there's something wrong with your child. So by us being able to serve all kids, that helps.
Thank you.
Mary Kay, this question may also be kind of directed towards the administration, but you're talking about space, and we've always had an issue with space for the Parents as Teachers program. Will the finished construction project at Eagle Heights with the 2 early childhood classrooms free up any space, or will there be additional space for the Parents as Teachers program to utilize?
We currently are in one of the preschool classrooms inside central office. So we love that space because it's a big space and we actually have the use of the playground out back. So we love being in central office. I think that way we're not tied to any one of the elementary schools. We're kind of out there that we're serving all families and not just those at Eagle or those at Maple or those at Horizon.
She likes, she likes the space that she has now. And I say she, meaning her program. The little room, as you walk in the main doors and that little room to the right, that used to be the Parents as Teachers operation out of that little tiny room. And so when we moved the early childhood programs out into the schools, and Mary Kay and I started talking about having that full-size room, you know, if you could have seen the look on her face when we started to talk about that. And then also, as she said, having that playground equipment, it just allows that program, allows them to do so much more. And so we're gonna keep her happy and keep that program happy in that space for as long as we can. In my mind, thinking long term, the only time that it would make sense to do something different would be when we bring all of the early childhood programs together under one roof, which would be a different facility. And that is something that we've wanted to do in the Smithville School District. Long-term vision is to bring all early childhood programs back together under the same roof so that they can mobilize their resources in that way. But well, I think it's going to be a while before we're ready for that.
Any other questions or comments for Mary Kay on the Parents as Teachers program? Thank you, Mary Kay.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Okay, moving on to old business, 11.0, 11.1, general financial review.
Yes, I've asked I've asked Mr. Kruger to join us for this section and to address the general financial review. So I'll turn it over to Wayne.
Thank you. Real quick, I just wanted to follow up on some of the items that we talked about last month. First and foremost, just a real quick update on the self-insurance pool that we participate in. We actually just received the financials this week. And if you recall, we weren't running real well. Actually, year to date, we're still running about 141% loss ratio. So in other words, 100% is break even. So we're 141%. However, for the past month, we were only at 120%. So that's a good thing. That's a good trend. We actually overspent. We were $53,000 in the red this past month, which is about 200,000 less than we were in the previous month. So that's a good trend. Year to date, even after that supplemental payment that you made last month of 200,000, we're still $366,000 in the red for the current year. Again, on June 30th, depending on how things run, we will need to be at zero. So we'll either, our trend will turn up and we'll be profitable for the last 4 months of the plan year, fiscal year, and or we will need to make another assessment payment in the current FY21 year in order to zero that balance out. Just that was stated last month, and I hopefully everybody understands we're self-insured and we pay for what we use. We're not paying for more, we pay for what we use. So that was just a real brief update on that. Kind of related to that, the Salary and Benefits Committee for both certified and non-certified staff have had ongoing discussions regarding next year's salary and benefit packages and what potentially that will look like. Obviously, a very big player in this discussion is what to do with benefits for next year. If you recall, originally the actuaries came back and recommended north of a 23% increase in premiums in order to handle our claim history, our claims projected for next year. That was the tune of about $480,000 of additional spend just for insurance. Well, that wasn't going to fly. Administration didn't feel that would work. Even the staff felt that wouldn't work. So we needed to go back to the drawing board. So basically, we are currently at the point of collecting more information. Ms. Davis just sent a survey out actually today to staff. We originally thought that we would come to the board with a recommendation tonight for medical insurance for next year. We're not prepared. We talked to both the certified and non-certified folks, and they wanted to collect more information before they made a decision on the direction or the recommendation that they want to move forward with. Basically, it came down to 2 questions. And the survey, this is a summary, by the way, and it's worded much better than I'm going to say it this evening. But the 2 questions were basically, as an employee, certified or non-certified, would you like to see more money in your pocket in the form of a salary increase and higher, which would result in higher dependent care cost? Or would you like to see less money go towards salary to offset the cost of dependent care for insurance for next year? So salary increases, but higher dependent care costs, or no salary increases and less dependent care costs. And the staff felt that it was important to get that kind of granular feedback before they came to you with a recommendation. Either way, in my opinion, the administration will be recommending to you to increase the board paid cap for insurance next year. Right now, it's currently at $590 for medical benefits. It likely a recommendation will be made to increase it either $30 or $60. If it's increased $30, the likelihood of money being able to go towards salaries is much greater. If it's $60, we're basically taking that money, rather than putting it into salaries, we're putting it all towards the cost of insurance. And that's the question that the staff is responding to. If the money does not go towards the cost of insurance, the dependent care cost basically go up significantly. Both plans, though, whether it's a $30 option or a $60 option, still provide 300% board paid options for employees. So it's the dependent care cost that's kind of in the discussion at this point. What we plan to do, because it's time sensitive, is to keep the board abreast of the results of the survey. But because of open enrollment moving forward with that process, based on the feedback from the staff, baking that into then the FY22 budget, the recommendation that's moving forward. It ultimately does not need your stamp of approval tonight. It will be included in the FY22 budget, and you will need to approve that, obviously. But we would not want to put anything into the FY22 budget that was contradictory to your intent. So we will continue to communicate with you as we move forward with that process. If you recall, we do have a workshop on May 4th, Tuesday, May 4th at 7 p.m. And again, we will have all of this well in advance worked out before May 4th, but we want to make sure you have that on your calendar. May 4th, 7 p.m. Ultimately, your budget, the preliminary budget for FY22 and the current working copy of FY21 will also be recommended and presented to you at the June 16th meeting. You'll have that at the June 16th meeting. Any questions about that? Again, we hope to, the goal was to have the results of the survey by this time next week, to have those back. And Ms. Davis and I talked about that ultimately we'll get back with the committees and formalize a consensus the week after we come back from spring break is when we're going to collaborate and get that information pulled together. If there's no questions, real quick, just two more real quick items. Dr. Schutz mentioned in the board priority updates the release of the $123 million by Governor Parsons to K-12 public education. For the Smithville School District, that was about, that release, the impact for us was about $550,000. So very significant. It was basically the same amount that he withheld in the previous year. So we got that back. I will tell you, because I had this discussion with the salary and benefits folks, we were already counting on some of that being returned. We were anticipating that. So it did impact our budget. Right now, I am projecting that we're just a little bit shy of still a $200,000 deficit for the current year. We've still got some unknowns, one being the self-insurance pool. So I can't say for certain we're going to be under $200,000. If you recall, the preliminary budget was over $800,000, and now we're under $200,000. So we've made great progress, but we still have several months yet to go. We have some virtual learning to pay for. We have the self-insurance pool to pay for. This Arctic blast. I mean, we're going to see the price of gas result of that and pay a little bit more for utilities. I mean, so there's still some unknowns that we haven't experienced, but again, we're in good shape. We also made application for the ESER2 funds that were approved by Congress on December 27th. We've made an application to the state of Missouri. The state of Missouri is currently sitting on that pot of money. They've not appropriated it yet. We've been told by DESE that they believe that the General Assembly will appropriate it before they adjourn in the first week in May. If they do, they believe that they can still get payments made by June 30. If they don't get payments made by June 30, we will get that money. It just won't be in this fiscal year. It potentially will be in next fiscal year. And again, as Dr. Schutz mentioned earlier, the $1.9 trillion package that was approved today has potentially up to 3 times the amount of ESER2 money. If that's the case for the Smithville School District, we could be talking in excess of $800,000 of additional stimulus funds. But again, that will not be realized until FY22 at the earliest. And it's my understanding, they don't even have the rules written yet, but it's my understanding that we'll have at least 2 years to spend that money. So we'll potentially get it in FY22, but we'll have some time to allocate it and spend it. I've already read some provisions that part of it has to be towards remedial learning. At least 25% of the funds have to be towards remedial learning to catch kids up, summer school, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some strings attached, but we will certainly be able to spend that and it will be good for kids. So that's an exciting development just as of today. So that's all I have unless you have questions as far as the financial update.
Wayne, I just had a question with the insurance. How many of our staff doesn't utilize the dependent care, that they just utilize the?
We of our members, we have 52 members that utilize dependent care that are on the plan, 52. Now, I cannot tell you of those 52 if they have 1 or 10, but we have 52 that utilize dependent care. We have 235 that do not access that dependent care option.
So is it, if we don't give them raises, the 235, their insurance wouldn't change? Is that correct, or?
If there's no money put towards salary,
It will help offset the cost for the dependent care. It will all go towards insurance. It will all benefit every staff, whether they have dependents or not, because it's applied towards their retirement and it counts as salary. So the insurance contribution counts as salary, even though it doesn't go to the pocket, and it benefits. So it'll benefit all if we do not put money into the salary and just put it all towards insurance. If we put money towards just salary or towards salary and increase the dependent cost, again, all members will receive a salary increase. But I can pretty much be assured that any amount of salary increase will be more than wiped out with the increase in the dependent cost. So in other words, the salary cost will not cover the increase in the dependent cost, if I'm making sense.
And when there will be slight changes to the plans.
Yeah, and there'll be some slight changes to the plan. The deductibles are adjusted between the 2 options just slightly and so on and so forth. They go up $100. One has a $4,200 deductible and it goes to 43, and there's some little tweaks here and there too between the 2 options. And again, they're not here this evening, but I will share that it has been a very, very collaborative process this year with both the certified and non-certified folks through the discussions regarding, the insurance and the implications associated with it. Very collaborative. Much appreciated.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Kruger? Thank you, Mr. Kruger. 11.2, enrollment summary.
Yeah, the enrollment you have from March 5th, 2646. That is up 20 students from the official count date of 9:30. Back then it was 2626. So we did drop a little bit from last month, but still on the positive side. And as I've said before, not all years do that. It's not uncommon to start at one number and then throughout the year just kind of dwindle as families make changes. But not this year. We're up 20 students. So.
Any comments or questions on the enrollment summary? Thank you. 11.3, adjustment to the reentry plan.
Here. Yeah, you've got it all there for you. And the board is well versed on my thinking here as we've been in communication over the last, week and a half as this process has progressed. Basically, what's allowed us to consider making a change here are a couple of things. Number one, the number of cases in our community is just it's just fallen off a cliff. I mean, the virus appears to have just really retreated at this point in time. That's what it looks like when you look at the data. It's like, where did this thing go? For the first time this entire school year, we have 0 positive cases in the school district, whether they be staff members or students. That's the first time we've experienced that. We have 9 students in quarantine right now, 8 from one of the elementaries and 1, I believe, at the middle school. So, and that's just our local numbers here. When you go out into the Smithville community, those numbers look great. The county numbers look great. The regional numbers look great. So the numbers are very, very different and very, that's very, very exciting. The other thing that gives me confidence as the superintendent is what we now know about the incident rate. In other words, the opportunity for the virus to spread in our schools. That rate is really, really low. It's really low for teachers, and it's even lower for students. And so that would give us confidence in moving forward with bringing our students back. So you take those couple of things, and we really went to work here on some plans. And so as the board is aware, we put together some people to get some feedback and to continue to move this discussion forward. And what we resulted in, as we continue to gather staff feedback, is to bring all of our secondary students back 5 days a week. We're not all districts doing this or going 5 days a week. We want to do 5 days a week with no transitions. Remember, originally we talked about transitions. Well, we think that's just messy. It creates a layer of complication. This is not necessary. So 5 days a week, beginning April 5th. Districts, our neighbors are anywhere from March 22nd. We're all coming back, by the way, in the Northland. But from March 22nd, and that's removing Platte County that came back March 1st. And I think things are going well in Platte County. But March 22nd to the 29th to the 5th. We have a neighbor to the south and east that's coming back the 5th as well. They're coming back 4 days a week. We want to come back on the 5th, 5 days a week. So I've listed for you here in this document some reasons, some justifications for us, or say justifications, why we are asking for April 5th. I'll put it that way, why we're asking for April 5th. Number one is vaccinations. Kim's going to update you on that. I mentioned the virus has retreated. In my mind, that's the best expression I can think of, that it's retreated, but it's not gone. We still have variants out there. We still need to wear our mask. We still need to do these things in terms of precautions, so it's not gone. We have approximately 54 staff members now that have at least one shot in the arm. And many of those staff members will have the opportunity to get a second shot in the arm if they're doing Pfizer or Moderna before April 5th. But the more time we provide there, that's the more time for more staff to get shots in arms. So that vaccination process has the opportunity to progress. So that's one reason. Secondly, families, giving families more time. We did hear when we removed the virtual day, we did get some feedback that when we did that, it was too quick. Families wanted time to adjust to removing that virtual day in the schedule. Principals are hearing from families that are hearing that April 5th is the date. They're getting some feedback that families are appreciating that opportunity as well. We're getting other feedback, however, that suggests we need to do it sooner. So as I said to you somewhere in here, some people will think that April 5th is not soon enough, and some will think that it's too soon. So that's going to be what it will be. You also have in there a list of tasks that we're working on. This list is intended just to let you know these are the things that we're working to accomplish. Some of them were started weeks ago. Some of them we can't start until we have certain pieces of information. So some of them can't be done in advance. You know, we recognize that we could put a rush on these things, and some of them especially having gotten done earlier. But we're asking for this time for those three things. Time to get these things done with fidelity, without rushing through them. You know, we've got to work with a lot of, I have asked our principals to meet with every individual staff member to determine, do they have the space that's adequate? Do they need PPE? Is there a better space in the building to accommodate their classrooms? So again, could we get all that done more quickly? Yes, we could. But we also are trying to finish summative evaluations with all of our staff members. You know, we're still trying to run our schools, you know, while we're doing all of these things. So again, that list is not to say, look, we can't do this any sooner than April 5th. That list is say, these are things we're working on, and is another reason why we're asking for time, in addition to the vaccinations and to give families more time. So that's the justification, you know, from the administration for April 5th. I am, you know, I have no reservations, though, of bringing students back, knowing that we're going to utilize the guidance from the Clay County Public Health Center that's in place, as well as the CDC, and work through some of those things. I've asked Kim has been working hard on vaccinations for our staff, and she's got has some developments today, including development from one of your soon-to-be colleagues, Mr. Blumker, as we know, is in the health care industry and is trying to help us out too. So Kim, would you update the board on the vaccinations?
Yes. So I did get word from Mr. Blunker today that his staff is working with us closely to secure a vaccination date so that some of our staff members can head out to Centerpoint Healthcare Center and get vaccinations through that organization. So we already have that scheduled for March 15th. There are a limited number of open slots available for our staff members. We have a small number now, but we're working with them to secure even more slots as soon as they become available. So we do have that date set for March 15th with Centerpoint. And then with our insurance consortium, we've been working closely with the Consiglia Wellness Center. They're the group that comes on site to provide our biometric screenings and our flu shots. They have been applying for the vaccine since it's become available. They finally got word that they're able to secure some vaccines, and they have set up a clinic for us as well, and that's on March 21st. It is on the weekend. But it's going to be open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and they're going to have a large number of vaccines available. It will be held at John Knox Village in Lee Summit, so we will be required to drive. We're going to be asking for some volunteers to help kind of staff that, to do some of the paperwork that goes along with that. But with that clinic, we should be able to offer the vaccine to all of our staff members who have not already gotten it, either on their own or through CenterPoint. And then also, we hope to be able to have enough to also offer it to our substitutes and our OPA workers and our bus drivers. So with the collaborative effort of Mr. Blunker and the CWC, and then all of the staff members working so diligently, every time we get word that there is an opening or a new clinic available, we push that out. And they are on it, trying their darndest to get on and get that appointment. So we've made a really strong push. We've got a lot of staff members working really hard to get the vaccine.
The one, the Johnson & Johnson, or are they the Pfizer and Moderna ones? The 2 dose?
I don't believe they're the Johnson & Johnson, but usually it really just depends on what vaccine comes in. That I know with the CWC, they've applied for all of the vaccines that are available, and then it just depends on what arrives.
So by the date of April 5th, we should hopefully have all teachers who do want the vaccination.
So because some of them require 2 rounds, it will really depend on the date that they did get their first vaccination. But the goal is to have the majority of the staff completed.
So that is the recommendation, and we can entertain additional questions that you may have.
Were there any students who had to lose out on an AP or dual credit course? How's that really working out for them?
We're going to provide every opportunity possible for those students to complete their credits. So we're offering to allow them to come in for that class if they want to. We're offering to allow them to participate remotely if they want to. So our goal is to allow the students to finish whatever credits they have been working on so far.
I would be remiss if I didn't at least speak up and say I was kind of hoping it had been earlier than the 5th. It's been my vision that we'd be ready for this day when it came, and then we'd be ready to execute. We're not leading the pack in the area. We're lagging our neighbors. I really think we can do better than the 5th. I really think that we should have been on top of this. And from what you're saying, our teachers are going to have their vaccination at least by the 21st. We could be ready earlier. I think we need to push earlier. That's just my feelings. I know that's supported by other people in the district, but we've had a long time to prepare ourselves for this. To wait another 3.5 weeks, I think is a little bit long.
One thing my thought is, though, is one of those weeks is a spring break, and that's supposed to be a time people are off, I guess, too. Should we have been more prepared? Maybe, but where we're at right now, I think I'm good with the April 5th date.
Well, and I think we need to remember that, the 200 teachers that could possibly get vaccinated between the 15th and 21st, they're just going to have 1 vaccine down. I mean, they're not going to be fully vaccinated, and they're not going to be immediately fully vaccinated from what I understand. So I would support the April 5th date. I would also support staying hybrid the rest of the year. But I probably would not support anything sooner than April 5th, because I do think we need to prepare, and we don't need to be rushed into anything we're not ready for.
Yeah, I'm fine with the April 5th date. Prefer diligence, try to rush. I know we still have to get staff, OPA staff hired and work out power school. You know, I'd hate for us to rush and get in and then we have a bunch of problems where we're understaffed or there's problems on faculty part. But I'm good with April 5th, do our due diligence and give family time to figure out their plans because they've been working on this hybrid and basing it off their schedules for this entire school year. So
Michelle, I did have one question for the high school. Just to clarify, I had some questions. We would go back to the block schedule, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's important, definitely for the high school. I think that will help our high schoolers, but saying that too, I know it's going to take some finagling. The teachers are going to have to change how they've been teaching and the kids are going to have to change. So maybe that'll give them a little extra time to get that done too.
Switching to the block also requires some major work in Power School, which our technology department will be taking care of. And so there really is a lot of work on the back end. Once the last day of hybrid occurs prior to the first day of block. And that's thanks to the technology department for their work on that.
So on the technology side, you'll be able to do that work if it has to, if it can't start until the last day of the one, and it has to be done by the first day of it, that's a 2-day weekend. We're gonna be able to make that a 2-day weekend. Whereas if we were to do it over spring break, that'd give you a whole week to.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that data and we're gonna move it to our test server and we're gonna do scenarios. And so that way we can test it, run attendance, see what it looks like, take the high school back to block, put some fake data in, run it, make sure it looks like we're ready. So that way when April 2nd happens, we can do it knowing that we tested and done it. And so that time before that gives us time to do that. If we don't, we would be basically doing it on the fly and just hoping it was the way we wanted to. So it gives some time to move that data over to the tester and run scenarios to make sure when April 2nd does happen, it's that last day of an 8-period day, we roll over, we test it, we've done it before. So that's our plan when that does happen.
You know, I get there's a lot of work involved with that. Without a doubt, there's a lot of work involved with everything. But from the classroom point, we were on block before this all started. We're going back to what we've always known. For our students, it's going back to what was always known. For our parents, we're going back to what was always known. I don't think it's going to be as big a transition for all of them as we're claiming. There might be a big transition for the IT that I can understand. There's probably a transition for OPA. There's probably a transition, some other things behind the scenes. But as far as what is placed in front of our students, we're just going back to what we've always known. So that transition shouldn't be a big transition. It shouldn't be much bigger than the start of school. So it should be going back to what we know. Again, 3 weeks to return to what we've always been doing and what we know and what we're familiar with. I think we can do better.
That was a big one, just from the standpoint of not only staffing, but from inventory. And so they need to build up their inventories because now they've been serving basically half the kids. These kids are only coming half time. And so now you're gonna have all kids full time, except for the slide runs, they went to virtual. To be able to build those inventories, get the menu training, get people hired back in. A lot of their staff is high-risk type folks. And so some have said they won't come back until they get a vaccine. And so now the vaccine is readily available. They're going to have more people to be able to choose from once the vaccine is completed for those folks. And they said some people just said, I won't work until, I get a vaccine. So they haven't worked all year long, which was fine for them because they only had half a meal to serve. So they were okay with that. But now that we're coming back 100%, OPA is also vendors at other districts regionally, so they're having not only a search from us, but it's a lot of other districts go back 100%. They're having to hire more in that area too, so we're not the only one trying to get the staff in. So that's a little bit of a sticking point, getting back to 100% is making sure we have the inventory for food service as well as testing.
I can respect that from OPA, but you've got our neighbor districts that are using them as well. and they're getting the benefit and going back on the 22nd, and we're just gonna take and sit back and say, okay, well, we won't take that benefit, we won't help our students out in the same way. To me, that's not a fair argument. That argument sits back and says, yeah, you're a secondary business, and we're gonna take it in the shorts and let our neighboring districts get the benefit of that. And I don't think that's a position that I'm willing to sit back and take.
No matter what date is given to us, we'll get it done. I think we will get it done, whenever what date is given to us. However, if we do have the additional time, it does give us more room for air, room for testing for Power School, room for open and ensure they have what they have to be ready for it.
I guess you know, I kind of get, we've seen a lot of feedback both ways. I get the notion that we want to get back as soon as we can, but I gotta be frank, I'm just happy we're going back. And if it comes down to a little bit of more preparation and planning, regardless of our circumstances on why we need more preparation and planning, I can support that. I'm just happy we're going back. Would I have loved to seen us go back 1st of March? Yes. I mean, you guys know that. We've harped on that. You've heard me harp on that, but I'm happy that we are finally taking a step forward to get back to 100%. And I understand there's probably frustration within the community and some individuals and parents with the speed in which that is occurring. And I respect that. And I completely am empathetic to that. But I also respect the due process in which we're trying to get a little more of our staff inoculated and protected, and the logistical support effort to make sure we're in alignment to provide the best learning modality for when those students do come back. So I'm happy to support April 5th, but if the board felt like April 20 or sooner was needed, I'd be happy to support that. I am just happy we're going back. So.
I will just say one thing that we need to consider here is when we put this out for the plan to be created, that this isn't just the district office or the administration that came up with this plan. This is a cumulative plan by the 2 secondary schools administration, the teachers in those buildings, as well as the district administration. So this is a plan that's been put together by those not infected, but affected by this return to 5 days a week. So I think we as a board, you know, I've heard, I think everybody, but just a couple, if anybody has any other comments to make, but this is the recommendation that the district as a whole, not just the administration, but the high school staff and the middle school staff has brought to the board as a recommendation. So any further comments or questions on this topic?
I think we can all sit here and give our own opinions about when we need to start. It's easy to sit in this chair and say, hey, I want to start tomorrow, or I want to start next week. But Denny's right. We've got some staff and some teachers that have gotten together and said, okay, this is the best way that we can go back. We need to listen to them because they know what's going on. We can sit in these chairs and talk till the sun comes up, but they know what's going on. They know what's best to go back to. They know the changes they've got to go through. We don't. I support April 5th. They know what they're talking about.
I will caution us in the fact that just some of the words that were said, we are listening to the staff, the administration, but we also need to listen to our community, because as a board, we are voted on to be that liaisons between the community and the administration. And our community is kind of split down the middle on what they're saying. And we are listening to this plan that was presented by the staff and the administration. But there is a part of the community that we need to pay attention to as well. And that community is asking to get back sooner.
and I think like all of us, we've all received, I won't even start to put a count on the number of emails that we've all received. I know personally, I was trying to respond to each and every email. It got to the point where my responses weren't sufficient, that I was giving canned responses or just saying thank you. You know, we'll take that into consideration. It wasn't enough, and then my responses started being taken out of context and taken and placed in social media. And then, you know, if I would respond to one and I didn't respond to another one, it just got to the point where it was an argument and it wasn't a discussion. So I have read personally every email that's come to me. I've forwarded every email that I've gotten that wasn't addressed to the board to Dr. Schutz and the administration, and they've put them in board memos. They've put them in today. He sent forwarded 3 or 4 emails to us that came in. So, you know, to say we're not listening, I think we're all listening. It's not an easy decision, but I think this is, like I said, this is the plan that's brought for us. And does anybody have anything further to add? Hearing nothing, I will accept a motion in a second to approve the reentry plan as presented.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to approve the reentry plan to 5 days a week as presented in our packet. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. New business 12.0, 12.1, approve amendment number 1 to the contract between J.E. Dunn and the Smithville School District.
Robert.
All right. I want to get unmuted here so that way it could be recorded and seen. So what you have in front of you is an amendment for the J.E. Dunn contract. And the reason they have amendments is they do not know what the actual cost of a project is going to be until the actual bid day of that project happens. So for example, they have in their contract that their fee is 3% of total construction plus any expenses for personnel on site. And so now for Eagle Heights that we know those total construction costs, we can calculate that 3%. And they also know what the personnel cost on site and other expenses, mileage, fencing, stuff like that is going to be. So that's why they have the amendment. And I have that in front of you today. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions on the amendment number 1? So that number there in our board packet, the $2.98 million is the final cost of the Eagle Heights edition, classroom edition.
That is the final construction cost.
Okay.
There is some soft costs above and beyond FF&E, which would be furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and some other separate type costs. Total cost of that project will be somewhere around 3.4 to 3.5 when you add in all the soft costs. But construction cost is what was listed in that amendment.
Sorry, I should have clarified. That's when we're talking the J.E. Dunn part of it, that is just the construction part. So any other questions or comments on the amendment? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion in a second to approve the amendment number 1 to the contract between J.E. Dunn and the Smithville School District.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to approve the amendment number 1 to the contract between J.E. Dunn and the Smithville School District. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. 12.2, 2021-2022 middle school Chromebook lease and sixth grade take-home one-to-one Chromebook purchase.
Microphone here. Okay, so what we have proposed and we've added to the board documents is we have the middle school devices which are coming off of lease, so those need to be repurchased. But in addition to that, we are proposing the sixth grade as that we would also purchase Chromebooks for those as well. Something a little different in this proposal for in years past, we purchased warranties for the Chromebooks. In this case, we're in a unique situation in that the devices that we bought last year that were coming off lease, which from the high school, and there was, when they came off lease, we were able to purchase those instead of sending those back. We saw what was coming with COVID, so we bought those so we could have those as devices. So we have about 1,000 devices that we've used for home devices or COVID devices for the students to use. Those screens and those devices can also be used in the newer devices that we're proposing to purchase. So we're proposing to basically self-fund our own warranty instead of purchasing a warranty and using the screens from the devices that we repurchased from last year's device that were coming off lease to then fund because most of the devices that we have, the repairs are usually screen breaks. That's most of it. So we have about 1,000 devices that obviously currently are in the hands of families or students for COVID. But if we do the 200 devices for the sixth grade, that's about 200 devices we'd get back that would support the next year of repairs for the middle school and then also the sixth grade if there was any screens.
Questions on the middle school Chromebook lease and purchase of the sixth grade take-home one-to-one Chromebooks. Hearing none, I'll accept the motion and second to approve the 2021-2022 middle school Chromebook lease and the sixth grade take-home one-to-one Chromebook purchase.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the motion passes. 12.3, K-12 real world learning facilitator job description. Dr. Crowell.
Yeah, so I have provided a job description for your consideration for the K-12 real world learning and community partnership facilitator. This will be a teacher contract with 10 additional days, much like our curriculum facilitators in math and ELA.
Dr. Cradfield, conceptually, how long have we been working on this idea?
Well, I mean, truthfully, this has been a major initiative since we started with CAPS. Part of the vision of the CAPS program was not just to expose our students who participate in that program to this type of opportunity, but then to expand it into the high school so that everyone could have that opportunity. So it really has been a vision for a while. This will allow us to put some real concerted effort and coordination behind it. But this is the second year of our strategic plan that really has a focus on career development, helping kids become aware of their passions and their related career pathways, and then also the opportunities to explore what those might be while they're in our schools.
I think it's going to provide a neat opportunity with our collaboration efforts with the city
Yes.
in terms of, employment needs and, opportunities to connect with local employers and figure out, can we drive local support and, employment growth from our school district? And I think we got some neat opportunities ahead of us. And I'm excited to see this finally come through, because I can't remember when you and I were having the conversation a year ago at one of these meetings. This was a critical piece of that, and I'm happy to see it come through.
Well, Ian, I'm really glad that you mentioned the connection with the city, because when we wrote our grant application, we really highlighted the fact that not only is this part of our strategic plan, it's part of our city's strategic plan as well. And that we have a natural partnership. And as we put together our planning committee, we certainly plan to ask people from the city to participate. So I think that it's just a perfect opportunity. And then this grant being available, it's just a great opportunity for our kids, our city, and the district.
And this goes beyond hooking or connecting kids to internship types of opportunities. This goes down to the level where we want to expose kids to a variety of experiences so that they can help determine what it is they're passionate about, what it is they like doing with their time, and give them those kinds of experiences younger. And so that can spiral up then through grades to when they get to the point in high school where they can choose a path, whether it be an academy or just an internship experience. They've already had some more intimate experiences on what it is they're really good at and what it is they might want to do later on.
Yeah, I think about this opportunity, and something that always pops into my head is we have a couple initiatives, the Early Childhood Education Initiative. As you identify those students who are striving to kind of run through the educational course of teaching one day, and connecting them with that opportunity, and then how that might outreach into our community and our private entities, and helping them strengthen their curriculum through our students for early childhood education, right? So there's so much synergy there. It's excited to see what it's going to look like. But that's something I always think about.
To be clear, this is not a certified position?
It is a certified staff member, yes, with 10 extra days in their contract, yeah.
It doesn't, this one wouldn't
Doesn't have
have to be a certified. I think what we want is we need to find the person who is going to be the best fit to build the community partnerships, because that is really the outreach that we are lacking.
They will be paid
Yes.
that way. It
They
could
will
be
be
a
paid like a
business person that could come in and help coach us in this area. So yeah,
Correct.
good question.
Yes.
But just too many times, you hear of kids that graduate high school and they don't know what to do. Whether they should go to college, whether they take a gap year, whether they go to Maple Woods, and I've had some of those personal experiences myself. And we want to do a better job of helping kids have enough experiences going through our system that they can better zero in on what their passions are.
It comes full circle.
Yeah.
I'm just remembering all of our conversations. I'll swear, Sarah, I'll quit talking soon.
No, you're fine.
But essentially, you talk about that back-end investment and the substantial cost savings to families without, giving the child the opportunity to learn what they're passionate about, to appropriately be educated at a higher level to support that passion without having to go do it backwards, where you went through this avenue, but then you change course corrections. That economic benefit to a family, I mean, when you think about it holistically, that's why I get so excited about this initiative way back when we started talking about it with the city and how it could truly impact Smithville. So it's neat. I'll be excited to see how it grows.
Well, how many of us in this room, and Sarah, I'll be down here in a minute. How many of us in this room have, declared a major in college, and then we're like, oh gosh, that's not going to work. Well, I've already got 12 hours in that. Then you go try something else, and that's not going to work either. You go try something else, that's not going to work. So it's kind of about, figuring out who you are, how you're made, and how you're wired at a younger age. And Michelle and I met with the administrator, the president of Maple Woods recently, and one of his associates, and we all before, we're getting very passionate about, working together to develop that at a younger and younger age. I think we're really doing that child a huge service as well as the family, to your point, financially.
I do wish something like this was around when I was in school, high school, elementary school, middle school. I mean, I had a dream, but that dream changed my junior year in college, So I wish there was more. And I've seen Camdenton, schools do a lot of stuff in the middle school. I mean, really cool stuff that I think if our kids had a passion, they would enjoy school more, even, and it doesn't have to be college career. It could be technical, it could be armed forces, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be just, what degree do you want?
I'm sorry? Yeah.
Camdenton has a great program. It's one of the programs actually that's inspired us to get further into this work.
Any further discussion or questions about the K through 12 real world learning facilitator job description? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion and a second to approve the K through 12 real world learning facilitator job description.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to approve the K through 12 real world learning facilitator job description as presented in our packet. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes.
Thank you.
12.4. This, I believe, is the high school science resource adoption.
Yeah, so the science department has spent this past year looking for resources that would supplement the textbook that they're currently using. They do not want to adopt a new text. They are using a lot of supplemental resources, and I think the theme that you'll see throughout these recommendations is they were really seeking to help expose students to the science content in ways that they typically do not get exposed to science content. I'm very excited about the resources that they've selected. What you're doing tonight is approving for us to go ahead and pursue these, and then I'll work with the budget that I am given to make sure that we stay within that budget, but to get as much of it as possible. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
No, I just want to say thank you to the science teachers that did the hard work doing this, because it is a lot of outside the box type things. And I like that they're not just trying to have kids read something, but this is I thought it was a really good way to educate all types of kids. So.
Not having seen any of these, I tried to do a little bit of research the best I could. The first one, a digital frog, the thing that kept coming back was that it's expensive. It said it's crazy well done. It's over the top of great production, but the cost of that is extensive. So I don't know what the cost is because I looked it up. I couldn't find any cost, but that would have a concern for me in our current environment. The second one had audio visuals with the whole 3D glasses and everything. So there's going to be a substantial cost that comes along with that one as well. I couldn't find any reviews on that at all. So as far as the content, I don't know, but that's going to come with a significant cost.
There are options for a less expensive way to use the VR headset. There's a Google VR headset that's much less than the official thing. So we will work within the budget.
The forensic supplemental resource one, that had a lot of mixed reviews. That was written by an author in the UK, and really weighs heavily on the forensic operations in the UK, not so much on the US. And that was a common theme on the reviews, that it was really based on, it wasn't based on the US forensics, it's based on UK forensics. And there's some, some people said there's biases and some other things on that. It didn't come over as having a stellar reviews. A lot of even ones that said really good things about it, said that the scientific content was a little bit lacking. It was more of a narrative. So that one, again, without reading this stuff and knowing 100%, these are just some of the things that I found with my quick Google search. And then the last one, I could find absolutely no information at all on the zoology one. So that's what I turned up. Those would be my concerns, is one, the cost in our current situation, and then the quality of that forensic book. Again, none of it, I have not read it, so it's just what I've gathered from my research.
Dr. Cradfield, based on our discussions, because in our meeting yesterday, that was one of the questions that Sarah and I had for Dr. Schutz. And unless you said something that I had slide right over the top of my head, this is all coming out of the current budget money. So these are not additional funds. These are coming out of their current budgeted funds for what their current budget is.
This will come out of next year's textbook funds.
Yes.
So FY22. And in fact, I'm expecting that we will be able to realize a lot of savings in that textbook budget, because this is the only adoption that we're doing. Whereas if we were doing an elementary science adoption, for example, it would be $175,000 to do that for our entire district.
What is your textbook adoption fund normally?
It depends on the year, but it's usually anywhere between 160 to 175,000. This will come in. I'm expecting that all I'll need next year to fund textbooks will be around 50 to 65,000. So there is $100,000 from that budget because this particular adoption is so small.
So that should have been a question I asked to begin with. Was it already budgeted for? So that's my comments on the cost is a non-issue at this point.
Well, no, I think those are really good comments, and those are things that we need to look at. And again, we'll work within the budget. We won't exceed the budget. So if we need to make some adjustments here and there, if we need to share some resources and not buy a copy for each student, for example, we will do that. So all of that is really
Textbook adoptions are expensive.
They are horribly expensive.
So as you discovered, so it's important to know.
Any other comments or questions on the high school science resource adoption? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion in a second to approve the high school science resource adoption as presented in our packet.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to approve the high school science resource adoption. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. 12.5, personnel report.
Yeah, you have the report, and we can answer any questions that haven't already been answered.
Any questions or comments on the personnel report that we covered previously tonight in our executive session? Ian had to step out just a minute, so we may.
So the teacher contracts we're looking at approving, just to summarize it for everyone who can't see them, some people are being approved for tenure for their upcoming year. Some of them are being approved to renew as a probationary teacher. And then, of course, our tenure folks are indefinite.
And then also the regular monthly list that
The regular, yeah.
we get.
There's not a lot of turnover yet on there, so I'm really pleased with that. Nice work, Kim.
Okay. No further discussion on the personnel report. I'll accept a motion in a second to approve the personnel report as been presented in our packet.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to approve the personnel report as presented in our packet. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. 13.1 miscellaneous.
Yeah, a couple quick items. Wayne mentioned the budget workshop. We had it down originally, you had it down for May 3rd. That's a Monday. That is a board, two boards, the city and the schools. That's a night that we normally get together. The city likes to meet on those Tuesdays though. So that's why Wayne mentioned May 4th. So if you have that in your calendar for May 3rd, if you can push it to May 4th, unless you object and would like to discuss that. And I also wanted to share with you
I have received 3 big boxes from Candy Sutton, who's retiring. And many of you know that Candy is on the Historical Society. So people see her as kind of, you know, a historian, a keeper of artifacts, if you will. And people will frequently just bring her stuff. Like they buy a house, they go up in the attic and they find something that has something to do with the schools. They bring it to Candy. So I've got 3 tubs of that kind of stuff in my office. And I just brought in a few things tonight. This framed, this big ornate framed diploma is from 1909.
Is that mine?
Yeah, it's yours. Yeah, from 1909. Probably one of the real gems, the true gems. If you've also been to my office recently, you've seen an aerial photograph that's been restored of what the campus looked like when Denny went to school here. And that was after 1909. But that's a pretty neat picture too. It's been restored. And so we take the history of this school district and the pride that this community has in this school district very, very seriously. This is need to handle it very carefully, a graduation program from 1921. And so that is pretty neat. I've got in there a play, a production, Peter Pan, I think maybe. And it's got the paperwork from that, but it's also got like a paper costume in there that one of the actors or actresses had worn. And so that's in there as well. And I've not gone through all of these boxes yet. I've got an annual from 1927. There's all kinds of annuals in there. But, when we did our, prepared for our sesquicentennial celebration, 150 years, really spent a lot of time with those people and going through the history of not just the community, but of the school district. It's just a really neat place. And there's a lot of pride that goes way, way back when you talk to people that have been here for generations. I'm just thinking here, what's that? Oh, would they like to see it? So I'll see what I can do here. Well, I bet they didn't hand it out like this. But the pride. Look at the pride though in this diploma and how this frame is we think is original, and how ornate the frame is, and so just when I see stuff like this, it makes me proud to be a part of this school district and of a community that has a long-standing history of supporting their schools, of loving their schools. And so I've not gone through all of these boxes yet, but I can't wait to do that. I welcome you to take a look when you have time, when you'd like time. We'll spread them out somewhere here in the office when COVID clears out a little bit more. But I just wanted you to know that I had this stuff and that it's available for you to look through. Good stuff. We will, and I think we probably want to display this just as it is. No restoration, just it's antique and.
You know,
While I itch my eye.
that's the first thing I was thinking was this is the history of the Smithville School District and things from this 2020, 2021 school year. That's 111, 112 years ago now. You start looking back, when we look back on this time, we always talk about space, but I do think, somewhere in high school, it would be neat to find a display place. There's a lot more people that go through the high school on any given day than go through central office or someplace. So, it might be something we kind of look at as.
With the packed lobby there, there's a lot of shelving that's not being used.
Well, along the real world learning thinking, is setting up a display as if you were a curator of a museum, that is the real world learning project that is a market value asset. So I mean, we could have students work on that. Give them some guidance, perhaps bring in someone from a museum who is a curator and give them some advice. I mean, we could totally connect this to a real world learning opportunity.
But that was kind of my thoughts, is the stuff doesn't belong in Rubbermaid totes. It belongs in a case being displayed as history. So. Any other questions, comments, Scott? Go ahead.
I want to give a shout out to all those folks that were in the play, the production of Little Women. If you didn't get a chance to see it, that's pretty good. As somebody who does an awful lot or goes and attends a lot of theater, especially a lot of live local theater, man, the production they did was really, really spectacular. So everybody needs to pat them on the back, and it really was a job well done. So.
Thank you for mentioning that, Scott. And they did it in a musical during COVID. We're all going to look back on this. We're in history right now. We're making history, right? But they had the clear masks, and they had their mics set up in such a way that, I mean, they could talk and sing, and everybody could hear them. It was amazing. And Little Women, that's not an easy production to do. I don't think, anyway. So they did do a great job. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, there was some real talent on that stage. Some real talent.
I think one last thing before we adjourn, I did see that the Lady Warriors will play William Chrisman Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. But it's just, we were both visitors tonight. So we will have to, it'll be still says to be determined on the location. So possibility, I guess right now, depending on how the state has the brackets set up. So enough on that. Any further comments or questions before we adjourn tonight? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes.